unless anybody else has anything to add, do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Hear a second? All in favor of the agenda, raise your hand. And we will go forward to the first applicant, 66 Main Street, Overlake Park. Come up and have a seat and describe your parking proposal.
Sure, thank you very much. This is a proposal that was approved previously. I think it was 6 or 7 years ago that we had this identical proposal approved. But the idea here being, we are looking to put 7 parking spaces into our vacant lot at 66 Main Street with some fencing in front of it to act as kind of like safe screening, but also something that is kind of pleasing to look at with flower boxes on top of it. The plan for that parking, it's not necessarily for public use. We would permit those spaces out. It would be for 3 staff in my office, including myself, 2 Charlio's staff, and 2 additional spaces that probably will go to either a long-term apartment tenant or somebody who's a retail tenant in the downtown core. So the idea isn't to have a lot of movement in and out or to use the spaces as kind of like metered rental spaces there. The parking lot would be graded, paved, lined, and we would put up signs designated that those spaces were reserved for those particular folks.
Just a quick question. Is this area between the 70 and the proposed parking, is that used for parking, or is that just?
It is not meant to be used for parking, but it's not my space. That's the.
So that's 68 Main Street property.
That's the 68 Main Street property.
Okay.
So that's behind what is now the yarn store.
Notion.
Yeah, I'm just asking for information.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I believe they do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where that boundary goes to. I think that it is in line with our Charlio's building.
Okay.
There.
And Charlio's is 70 Main Street?
Charlio's
is that right?
is 70, yeah.
Okay. I was having trouble trying to picture where your parking would be. So you would have the backs of cars up against that right-of-way, the alley that comes through? Is that what you're thinking?
This is your measurements. This is a standard parking space ending here. And then if you go to, sorry, this is just easier. If you go to the one that was marked up due to DPW comments, so there's a different site plan that has some yellow highlighting on it. So this is per the DPW comments. There's some distances down at the bottom. So there's a 12-foot aisle between the back of the parking spaces but until you get to the actual
current
right of
alley.
way
Yeah.
to the alley.
Because this alley is really a one-car alley. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So DPW is saying that there can't be parking here for snow storage, they've eliminated.
That's not for snow storage. Tell DPW that their standards are right, especially when the standards like this, I think,
I
come down
understand.
from the state.
I understand. So it's
And again,
7 to 5.
our purview is only on the design,
Yeah.
not necessarily rights of access.
Sure.
So
What's
that's
the,
not our call.
what's the decision regarding the fencing and mulch? It's 30
Decision as in?
30 lineal feet of fencing and mulch.
Right, so there's you sent me the email with your plans for it, how high it was.
Sure. So the fencing, which is going to be wood, kind of with flower boxes on top, it's going to be 42 inches high, slatted so that to help kind of with line of sight below and above folks who are like kind of coming out of there will be able to see through, and also over it. And flower boxes are generally pretty. So we figured we would put some of those on there and kind of maintain those throughout at least the months when flowers grow in Vermont.
So again, the design resembles the back of the black door.
Black door, yeah.
So- Right, I
It's
saw
the
that, so that,
Yeah.
the flower boxes are towards the sidewalk or the other way
I think they
around?
would be right up against the sidewalk, basically,
So the fence is held back a bit then?
from,
So you're not hanging over the sidewalk?
I guess it wouldn't be hanging
Yeah.
over the sidewalk, right? Yeah.
And then the overall 30-foot length just demarcates your overall distance to right of way?
That is to the right of way from, that's the length of the, yeah, horizontal, is the line.
The space and the access and.
Right.
And that meets just your standard, front yard zoning requirements for fencing, maximum heights. That's all within the zoning regulations allowances, as well as we've run it by Department of Public Works and they have no issues with line of sight with that.
Okay.
It was important to them that pedestrians be able to see through to see if cars are coming, as well as people be able to see out if they're trying to exit, both for vehicles coming and pedestrians.
Right, sorry, I missed that while coughing. You're saying that DPW is requesting that that fence be something you can see through?
Yeah, they don't want it solid. And they're because of line of sight issues and safety issues.
In the winter, what will you do, just pull the boxes, or are they built in?
I figured that they would be built in. We would probably just kind of replant them every season.
And what is this wood, what species?
This is just a pressure treated. We're figuring that probably would kind of weather the elements best. We've had good luck with it. That's what it is at the black door.
You can just dig through to put your 4x4s in and mount your fencing to those verticals.
Right, that was the idea.
Is there any fencing or anything proposed to delineate the lot line back here as cars are pulling in?
We were going to just put kind of curb stops
Mhm.
in there. But no, there is not
Okay.
anything proposed for that area.
And the signs will just be on posts?
Just on
back
posts.
there?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's not a residential area back there, you're not trying to separate it from, it's basically, right now it's used back there as sort of just a parking
Yes.
area. The zoning requirements don't really require additional screening between
Okay.
those two uses,
Right.
as far as I can tell.
Okay.
After you, Seth, thank you.
That doesn't mean DRC can't pipe up about it, but.
Just curious as to why you selected this fence?
Why I selected
Or why
this
a fence-
particular
Why a
fence.
fence in general?
We needed something to create a boundary area. We needed to be able to see through it. We figured that there was likely potential for damage to whatever kind of screening was gonna be there because of snow removal, vandalism, things like that. This is an easy fence to kind of like fix and repair various pieces of. So that was part of the thinking. The other idea, as Meredith said, is you can see through it. And we had put it up in the downtown district, so it was something that had kind of aesthetically been approved, so
And a-
those are the
and a-
three thoughts.
A raised bed wouldn't be something that would be considered? I don't know,
I
to
would
me
need
it
to,
seems
I
a
would need
little-
to look back
It
at,
seems a little out of context.
I would need to look back at the
to me.
site plan requirements, I can look at that right now while you discuss.
Or
But
maybe
there,
a
I mean, there's some
landscape option
screening
or
requirement, cause it's a parking lot. There needs to be something there.
My questions are along the lines of Seth's, and more interested in what are the DPW things that we need.
The DPW?
Well, not DPW,
Design review.
no, like, that it's see-through, like, the other jurisdictions that are saying, okay, if you're gonna build this thing, it's gotta be,
Right, whatever if it's a fence or a wall, it cannot interfere in line of sight.
Yep.
Both for pedestrians and vehicular and, bicycle traffic. That line of sight standard doesn't necessarily have a particular standard to it. It's sort of, that's more of a engineered judgment call, but they were happy with the height and the see-through ability.
Right, is the 42 inches a magic number?
4.5 feet is the maximum height. 32 inches is not necessarily a maximum, like a magic number itself. The 4.5 feet.
Right, we did,
is-
we chose 42 inches, figuring that with growth on top of that, it would keep us kind of below that 48 inches, or what is it,
4.5 feet.
4.5 feet, so 54 inches.
So screening is a requirement for this type of parking, even though we're right up against a street.
It's the same thing over at Capitol Plaza, when you drive into where the Northfield Bank is, between the stone church and the Capitol Plaza. When you drive in there, they put that iron fencing up. Again, it's see-through.
Well, just hold on one second. I mean, this, one reason you started with the fencing is because that was part of what was required in your previous, or what you proposed and was accepted in your previous application.
That's right, that was, I mean, a lot of the reason that was because the last time we were here and speaking to deciders, some of you who might even be here, Steve maybe, that was a choice that was acceptable at the time. And screening was a requirement, and separation between vehicles and pedestrians was a requirement. And I guess that was a decidedly appropriate compromise there, and was good enough looking. I'm not sure.
So what, is there a height on the screening, a minimum height on the screening that's required?
It's not a minimum, no.
So okay, well, what is the definition of screening?
It's just, see, part of the issue here is that you're dealing with, in a district that technically is exempt from landscaping, right? I need, hold on, just give me a minute, okay, to read
I guess
and get, cause it's not like I did a staff report for today.
My line of thought here is that it would be nice to have something different. It seems that this fence is not gonna last, it's gonna get beat on quickly. I know you can repair it, it's easy to repair, but it just seems like it's gonna be an ongoing maintenance issue. And it seems a little out of context being right up to the sidewalk. It's not in a residential neighborhood, it's downtown. I know it's on the back side, second story of the building adjacent, but if we could come up with a more elegant solution, whether landscaping or raised bed, that is within the definition of screening, then I think it would be much more successful, much more resilient to abuse.
So it doesn't have to be a fence. Screening may include natural or man-made elements, including landscaped buffers of trees and shrubs, earthen berms, fences, walls, screens, camouflage, or similar mechanisms.
So-
And it doesn't have to be, you know, screening does not need to be that all views of the area or element to be screened are fully blocked. Rather, screening should be used to soften and break up views and create visual interest elsewhere on the site so that the area or element to be screened no longer dominates the view. So it doesn't have to be a fence. There needs to be some sort of break between the sidewalk and where the parking spaces start and where the paved area starts.
Yeah.
So technically, it could be a landscaped area with some trees in it, in between the sidewalk and where the parking
Salt
spaces start.
resistant.
I mean,
But
I'm
what-
all for some sort of fence there, whatever that word means.
Mhm.
But I'm with Seth that I think it is an opportunity to do something far more interesting than that.
Which doesn't mean more money either, I mean,
Well, I mean, it might, but I think also that Jesse is has demonstrated an openness to interesting ideas. I think he's trying to propose something that he knows has been accepted in the past and not necessarily trying to rock the
Right,
boat.
right.
And so I think there could be an opportunity to do something that's far more interesting.
Seth, were you thinking like raised beds with flowers in them? Is that
Yeah, I
what you're
mean,
thinking?
raised bed with some sort of landscaping in there, I mean, it seems.
But
kind
how
of a-
high does it have to be? The idea of the visual, of being able to see through is to see as you're driving out, to be able to see on the sidewalk some kid running
I understand that. Yeah.
uncontrolled,
High enough.
20 feet ahead of his mother who's screaming at him to slow down.
You know the salt spreader that's on the back of the little, you know, it has to be higher than that. Which, what, I mean, couple, maybe 18 inches?
Mhm.
And if it doesn't, it could be potentially like several planters, so there would still be
Yeah.
visibility between them.
Right.
As long as,
And with that, you wouldn't necessarily have to put in a gate and a fence to provide pedestrian access, like we had talked briefly about, right? Emailed you about,
Right, because
Mhm.
it's free flow.
because it's a free flow.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
So is I'm open to recommendation, really what's most important to me is to be able to, have a project that people are comfortable, passing through. So do you think that planters, am I hearing planters here?
Or,
Shrub?
you know, do you wanna make a recommendation, or do you wanna see a redesign, or how are you comfortable dealing with this procedurally?
I'm willing to make my opinion,
Okay.
recommendation. I mean, 3 beds raised, maybe 18 inches high, plus or minus. I don't know about vegetation wise, I have no clue. It's not my area, but whatever is salt resistant and, I mean, would you wanna see it as a year round, or would you wanna replant? I mean, it's a matter of how much maintenance you wanna put into it.
I guess I would, if it was gonna be plantings, I would want something that was pretty resilient. I wouldn't want to have to replant. I'd put something in that was, pretty rugged. Winter, summer, a survivor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the idea.
So raised beds, 18 inches high, plus or minus, some sort of vegetation that is salt resistant, and then perforations through it that allow people to go through. So maybe it's 3 or 4 beds that allow for a 5-foot opening in between each.
And so when you say raised beds, are you thinking like planter boxes?
Could be.
Or
Yeah.
what?
Could be. I know you're going fence, right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna simplify this with my suggestions, but that I think it's a unique opportunity to do something pretty cool and do something that has some artistic value to it that is possibly more interesting than some planter boxes, but that it would require a little bit more thought and some sort of demonstration of what that may be. And so that's not helpful for moving this process along at the moment.
So you're voting for coming back, basically.
I would vote, yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a way that we could approve a project with some sort of like space holder and a default if and when the applicant doesn't want to resubmit, but feels like, okay, this is, a planter box is good enough, great. But if they wanna resubmit with a new idea, there's room to do that. I imagine you're not trying to do this next week. Are you gonna try and pave this winter?
No hot mix this winter. No, we wouldn't be doing anything until late April, early May.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe it makes sense just to table it and come back.
Yeah, I think we should give a nod to some direction that says, yes, this is a viable project, yes, this is the direction. I mean, I think we owe him that.
What do you wanna do, Jesse?
Before it becomes a viable project, will the public have a chance to weigh in on this before a vote on a viable project?
Yes, I mean, if they come back with some other suggestions, we can, look at the proposal and then take any public comment before we do a final vote on the project.
Well, and since he's here today, we should,
Can I?
Yeah.
Can I make
Go
a
ahead.
comment?
yeah, just come up to the microphone,
Sure.
please.
Introduce yourself and
Absolutely.
then,
Richard Shear, and I live at 39 Loomis Street, near Main Street. And in the interest of fairness, my wife has a downtown store. The two dogs are part of our family. I see this, Jesse might be here a lot more frequently than we were. 8 years ago, we were here once to get a sign in front of the Quirky Pet, and we came back for a flag that didn't get approved. But boy, to say that what happened during the days when the flag wasn't approved means the flag wouldn't be approved today, it just doesn't hold to me. I mean, times change, circumstances change. And my feeling and our feeling, my wife and I, we stand by the Public Works. We do not want to see ingress, egress to that back parking area in any way impeded. That's a serious issue. I sat on the parking committee for several years. We looked into that. And the transportation committee has been looking into that. And the master plan, the city master plan, the downtown master plan looks into that. Anything that might jeopardize ingress, egress to that back area should be taken seriously. It should, under no circumstances, be 7 spaces. If it is to be, it should be 5 spaces. And if it's 5 spaces, then your discussion of that fence up front really has very little meaning, because the fence can move back to in front of those cars. It doesn't have to sit next to the sidewalk. And the fence, if it's sitting back, doesn't have to be 4.5 feet tall. It can be 8 feet tall. And you can hide those cars, with a 6 to 8 foot tall fence sitting further back in the lot. That leads to another question. Again, this seems so premature to me in a process sense. I don't see planning weighing in on this. I don't see transportation weighing in on this, when planning's been talking for the last 7 years about infill in the downtown, commercial infill in the downtown. And it was never the intent to have a street side parking lot on either State or Main Street. That was never the intent of infill housing. So basically, I would like to see this tabled. If it's not tabled, I will challenge it to design review in order to slow the process down so that planning can weigh in, the planning committee, and so the transportation committee can weigh in if it comes in at 7 spaces rather than 5. If it comes in at 5 spaces, there's no reason for the transportation committee to weigh in. But there's every reason for the planning committee to inform you of what their intent was, not only in terms of infill now, but of the master downtown plan that's being proposed. In none of those plans that went in this chamber a few weeks ago was there a downtown parking lot on Main Street, albeit even a small parking lot. None of those plans included that. And it does change the aesthetic of downtown that we're trying and investing mightily to achieve. So in my mind, as I told Jesse when I walked in, this is not the question of 5 parking spaces. He's free to do with his land as he sees fit, if they're filtered off and blocked off so that you're not looking at them. But it's the question of whether this meets the integrity of our downtown vision. And we have DPW weighing in on this, but we don't have planning weighing in. And if it went before design review, or development review, I should say, I'm certain that planning would weigh in on this. Now, if planning says that my view of infill is wrong, so be it. My view is wrong then. But if planning were to say that my view is correct, it seems to me that this is premature. So to be talking about what kind of bedding we have next to the sidewalk presupposes 7 spaces. Otherwise, that's not an issue. That kid running there is not an issue at all, because you'll be able to see that as you come out of that alley, because there'll be nothing there impeding it. So that's where I saw things going off rail a little bit, and you getting ahead of your skis, is talking about this as if that fence up there were the only option in this, when it's not. And so a healthy discussion of holistically what the plan also might look like might be in order. You know, and it's appropriate to this, having sat before and seen my wife present before the committee, it's the kind of thing that I think the committee should be doing. I mean, you even asked a question, none of these members were on at the time, 8 years ago. But I was sitting there listening as someone said, what does a red dog mean? What's the wooden red dog for? You know, which is a representation that's in the window. And there was even a discussion of the molding there. I mean, you have gotten into micro detail before, but in this case, it's more of a question of macro detail. Not discussing the proposal as submitted, but discussing the proposal as it could be within the parameter of 5 rather than 7. And again, as she said, that's DPW's purview, and DPW has made their stand. So I assume that 7 will not be and that 5 will be. So does the design for 7, is that the only design possible when the design comes back for 5? So I would send this back for reconsideration, given the new parameters that DPW has set, which we think are perfectly normal parameters. You do not want cars blocking the ingress-egress onto Main Street from that back parking lot under any circumstance. That's my view on this.
Thank you. I thought that we were going with 5 as,
I mean, that's basically what we've realized today, that DPW is insisting on
because
those spaces.
that's within this report.
That's within that package, is the comments from DPW.
Thank you for that, Richard. I appreciate the time. I don't intend to move the fence or any kind of screening from the front of the lot back to closer to where 5 spaces may be. I want to keep that fencing right up where I've proposed it to be.
And that's for snow removal.
And so that I have snow removal in the front area there. And an 8-foot fence, though I understand what you're trying to achieve there in the back, is too high and feels dangerous to me as far as obfuscating people's views in and out of there, as far as folks coming in and out of this lot or otherly. So that's not a consideration of mine.
Okay. If you're not able to use the full 7 spaces, have you thought about any alternatives to the use of those 2 spaces behind, either in the summer for, a patio of some kind, since you can't park there, find some other use for that? Or if in fact you did move the fence back, is there space up front to have a food cart or something there?
I'm not really sure.
Okay,
Those
no, I'm just-
comments only got passed around between DPW and Jesse himself today.
I'm just throwing that out
Yeah.
as, looking for a use for those spaces, maybe seasonally, since you can't park there.
Mhm. Sure. I will think of something. Or not, I guess. I need to decide if a 5-space parking lot is really viable, because based on what I have for parking there right now, it would be 5 is a small net gain, and it's an expensive proposition to grade it and pave it and line it and put in whatever Ben is gonna put together here. I know it's gonna be genius. It's not gonna be free, and so really, I don't know. Maybe without 7, it doesn't make sense. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that at only 5, it's tight for me, and so that is a discussion outside of the aesthetics of this that I will take up with Public Works and Planning and Richard and whomever, and maybe we can come up with something workable, and maybe we just have what's there. That's obviously not what I think anybody wants. So.
Okay, so we'll table it. You can
Table it?
go back to the drawing board, both finances and design issues and
Sure.
take a look at what your options are.
As far as screening as proposed, whether, it's on the street or it is moved back from there, do you have guidance for me if we're gonna be coming back here? As far as the aesthetic of things, not necessarily the location, are you thinking that the planters are the move, or do we have another idea that is preferable?
I mean, I have all kinds of ideas percolating, but this is the first I've seen it, and
Yeah.
I haven't really had a chance.
If you were to move it back,
Mhm.
then obviously as cars move forward, like you were talking about, now you're ahead of any fencing or screening, you're ahead of that. So now you have clear view of the sidewalk, depending on what else might be proposed for that front section if you were to move the fence back. So that would change the requirements as far as screening of the parking.
And I mean,
I mean, it's
Maybe I don't understand
Yeah.
clearly enough.
I mean, it's still technically in the front yard, you're still limited to 4.5 feet height, still technically in the front, cause it's not really a side yard or a rear yard
Yes.
fence or wall. But you have some other options for the type of fencing,
Hmm.
because
If it's
not-
farther back?
If it's farther back, because like you said, cars can get in front of it before they're in the pedestrian or vehicular way, so you have some
Mhm.
other options.
Okay.
'Cause it
The other
doesn't-
thing, again, by planting and just experience, it's tough to find anything you can put on a planter that will survive more than a year or two.
I'm not in disagreement
I mean,
with you about that.
You're gonna,
raised.
if you put planters in a planter box, there's not enough soil in there, it's not gonna survive. You might get 2 years out of it, that's it. I mean, we've done evergreens and large planters, big, deep ones, 3 feet deep. 2-3 years, and it's called evergreen, not everbrown. So, but if you were to move back, you might be able to plant a low-growing shrub and get it down into the ground. And you could plant something, we've got yews that are still green after 25 years that are planted into the ground because you have enough soil and they've survived pretty well in the winter.
Mhm.
So again, that gives you some other options as far as screening. You could actually have plants, a line of shrubs or something, and again, set back far enough so now that the cars are driving ahead of that. And that gives you an option to maybe have another use of the space between the sidewalk and that screening.
Benches would be nice.
I was thinking that too.
Gotcha.
benches facing the sidewalk.
Mhm.
Right?
Benches and room for a food cart.
Food cart, benches, something like you've done in the past.
Mhm.
I mean, I do take Richard's point that like being able to get through here is nice, especially if there's like traffic
Mhm.
kind of parked here, that it's like tight for a pedestrian to walk through there.
Oh, yeah. Well,
And
that's,
making it possible for somebody to walk through there, if it's gonna be a parking lot and not a building that you wouldn't be able to walk through. And this is some amount of this has to remain open. It feels like it would be nice to have that be permeable for somebody to walk through.
I mean, your spaces are 8 feet 6 inches wide, so 2 spaces is roughly 17 feet. So that gives a significant amount of space to create a small parklet.
Can I ask a question? Jesse, could that be
can you
an
come up to the
ancillary
mic?
of Charlio's?
Can you come up to the
Oh, I'm sorry.
microphone so that public can hear?
You understand commercial zoning, I don't. Could that be an ancillary patio for Charlio's, even though there's a business in between?
I don't know with the new zoning. We had been approved for that with older zoning, but then some neighbors who weren't particularly fond of us decided to appeal it.
Neighbors who weren't me.
Neighbors who weren't even you.
And I think that's also liquor license issues even more than zoning.
Right, how do you get the liquor from one building to the
It was
other?
there was I realize that this is not what we're talking about, but there was like there was a shuttling agreement that we came up with that seemed to be acceptable to the Department of Liquor Control.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, how far away, because
It didn't
like
come through
Positive
my-
Pies Parklet, I mean, they cross
Right.
the sidewalk with it, but it's right in front of their building, so.
It would have been, I guess, 19 feet, 6 inches here to get across there.
So anyway, do you wanna, we'll table it?
Seems like
You
we'll
can go back to
seems
the
like
drawing
we'll-
board and look at.
Seems like we'll table it, I guess,
So to table, we need to do it to a date certain, to then come back.
So 2 weeks from today, or the first,
what is 2 weeks from today?
today's the
I'm on the-
6th and 14th's 20.
Well, yeah, it's the 21st, it's a Tuesday
21st.
meeting, or the
Okay.
one after that is February 3rd.
Okay, I can't make the 21st meeting,
Okay,
so the
February
first
3rd?
February 3rd?
still gives you a couple of months away anyway.
A
Yeah.
month.
Yes, so, we are tabling this, and are you looking for anything in particular from me, other than, a definitive new screening plan and, hard answer about number of spaces?
Yes,
Those are the two.
screening
Yeah.
options.
Yep,
And again, as Department of Public Works is requiring a maximum of 5 spaces based on the amount of
mhm,
property you have. So based on 5 spaces, screening and whatever you might propose, patio benches or just leave
Path.
that open.
have something,
Yeah.
okay. I think that's enough guidance. I'll try to bring back something, that makes you all happy.
And
Well,
you can-
it's gotta work for you too.
No, exactly,
Yeah.
I won't bring back something that I'm
Yeah.
unhappy with.
Yep, okay, we didn't think you would.
Yeah.
So do I hear a motion to table this application until February?
I second it.
Second, all in favor of tabling? Okay,
Okay, thank you all for your time.
we'll see you in February.
See you in February. Maybe I'll see you around on the street.
Okay, thank you.
Jesse.
Thanks, guys.
We don't have an applicant for 89 Main Street. Do you wanna give me a minute to run down and check my email, or do we just?
What do you do in that situation normally?
It depends. Sometimes I go down and see, my biggest problem right now is my cell phone completely died, so I could try and call them from downstairs, or we can just tell them they have to come back to the next meeting.
I would tell them that they have to come back. It's kind of like, you know,
What I would tell them.
if you,
Well, we
So
did,
what's
yeah.
we did call.
Skinny Pancake
So-
doing for a vent on the side of the building? Are they moving?
No,
They're doing the garage.
they're there, that's where
I
they
had
are.
Jody on the phone.
That's where their kitchen is, so this is the entrance to the cellular, AT&T. This is
Oh,
where their
okay.
kitchen is,
Yeah.
back behind the area where you order. And they need to put in a new vent, so the actual fan out is up on the roof where you can't see it, but the ductwork, this is the only place where the ductwork can come out. Yep, so I had suggested, they had said that they were gonna paint it originally, is that what they still, I asked them to maybe consider other options, but I haven't heard back from them. Yeah, it's still the same thing, they were gonna try and paint it to match the building.
Meredith, sorry, I know it's not my turn anymore.
I took,
You're gonna email me all of that information?
I'll follow up with you tomorrow.
Cool.
And we can always meet and discuss options.
That's great, and we said the 3rd.
Yes.
Okay.
Really? Wow.
This looks terrible.
This is not possible.
So they're proposing painting it to match the building. I went back to them because I know we've had issues before where chimneys, if you paint it, it voids any warranty.
Yeah.
And this is very similar to a chimney, maybe it's not quite as hot, but it's gonna be pretty hot.
This is a
Um,
public art project.
And,
right?
so- well,
Do they?
that's, I actually suggested to them whether or not they can do something to actually make it more like public art, some sort of,
Do they have venting now?
I honestly don't know. I don't know what they have for venting right now. I mean, there's an existing just louver vent, I guess, right there where that's coming out.
Existing louver.
But that really wrecks the entire facade.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, maybe it's an opportunity to fix it, but not with just the,
I don't know if they're trying to do
ductwork.
higher heat stuff in there, and that's why they need the new ventilation system.
Well,
I
run it
don't
through the
know.
building and through the roof, not outside the building.
For some reason, they can't do it that way, according to this. We explored other routes for the vent, and there are no viable alternatives.
That's, seems hard to believe.
That's the most god awful ugly thing that you could
It
possibly
is,
do
it's
to the
awful.
building.
So do you want me to run downstairs and see if I have any comment emails from them and try to reach them, or?
They already
Just-
know the answer.
Maybe they reconsidered.
Maybe, I mean, they've had notices, a few different, I emailed them and then Audra reminded them about the meeting.
I think it's really, it would be really unfortunate.
So I can
would
always go to them with
strongly
that,
oppose it.
that reading from the DRC and see if they can redesign somehow.
yeah, I mean, thank you, Jesse.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thanks, guys.
I mean, if it's the same color, it's not like it's not gonna be noticeable.
No.
No,
It's,
No, I think it would have to have some, I mean, I think it's a terrible idea, but some public art sort of way of making it
yeah.
read not venting, but something interesting coming off the building.
And that's basically what I sent to them after I saw this, and I went to Mike and asked them what,
It would even be better if they had some kind of flat panel vent that could come out of the sign pan, even if it projected slightly. That would be better than, I mean, this thing is visible everywhere.
From an airplane.
Yeah, why, I guess I don't know enough about venting, but why would it have to go all the way up the building?
They
I'm-
used to.
hmm?
I mean, it's often that's the way it works in an effort to get them the heat and the grease and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's just
Maybe the
because
di-
of what's actually coming out of it.
Grease
Right.
coming?
If it's grease laden, then that's an issue, and distance, overall distance from the source to the
Yeah.
vent
Yeah.
is also another issue. But
I'm
going
ass-
directly up is probably the better way to
I'm
do it.
assuming the old coffee corner location where,
Right,
the
Bluestone.
vents out of the side,
Yeah.
where
Yeah,
Bluestone
the
is.
grill's right there.
And the grill's right there. I'm assuming that, and I'm not sure if that's grandfathered or if that's still possible.
I don't see how it could have been, it was a new business that went in.
But wasn't the vent was there before.
Right. It was the
It doesn't mean that
pre-existing
They still have
vent.
to be in code,
Yep, and that's all building code,
right?
so.
They should.
Although I don't know if they didn't change anything inside with if they didn't change anything, I'm not sure that they'd have to meet new building code if all the stoves and ventilation system were the same.
Well, it was still a renovation technically.
I think we ought to,
Yeah.
since they're not here, I think we'll pass them the
Yeah.
application.
I
And
think that's the right.
have them, maybe
Come back.
advise them to come to the next meeting with maybe some other alternatives
Mm-hmm.
Some really good
without
ideas.
wrecking the
Ex-
entire, it's one thing if you can do one in, in the back alley, but, I mean, this is street front, this is,
That's a big event.
what is the number 7 here? Recognition of and respect for view corridors and significant vistas, including gateway views of the city and state house.
Yeah.
This is state and Maine.
Well-
Right on the front of a building.
It might make
Well,
it difficult for us to
incompatible-
enforce other rules in the future if we
Yeah,
let that one through.
harmony of exterior design with other properties in the district. If you're talking about the front facades of other properties.
Yep.
Okay.
And again, recognition of and respect for
Mhm.
view corridors. I mean, this is one of the main corridors coming in, whether you're coming in on Main Street approaching State,
Yeah.
or coming the other way, or coming down State approaching Main. I mean, that's right there.
Yep.
I really like skating pad.
What's preventing them, and I'm not sure what the ceiling is, whether it's a suspended ceiling in the AT&T space adjacent to it, what's preventing them from going across the ceiling, just a straight shot right out the side of the building towards the church, towards Bethany?
I don't know the architecture and, I mean, it's all, the other thing is all, the whole building is owned by one person.
Yes,
So
Doug
one
Nettie
company,
owns
one,
the
yeah,
building.
so you would
It's-
think that they'd be able to
To work with
work,
another.
yeah, work with the
tenant.
other tenants.
Yeah.
Especially in ceiling space.
Again,
Alright.
what do they have now? Are they not required to have it now?
I don't know.
Venting.
I don't know.
Do you remember it was the vents that caught on fire at the Hen of the Woods in Burlington?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
Because they didn't bother to clean it frequently enough.
Mhm.
And again, that was a long run.
Yeah. Sort of like a long run up a building, huh? Yep.
okay,
And again, what happens to warm grease when it goes outside and goes shooting up
that far.
40 feet of cold metal?
Yeah, I haven't, the
You make
building
lard.
inspector has been out about as long as I've been out between illnesses and, vacation time, so I don't know if he's even had a chance to look at this application. So I'll run it by him as well.
Have Chris look at it.
Yeah, I'll have Chris and Bob Gowans take a peek at it to double check on that issue, cause that seems like a really long way with lots of corners for a vent to be running from a restaurant.
Okay, so they'll come back the next meeting or sometime after.
Yep.
And the next item on the agenda is approved minutes of the meeting on December the 2nd. Was everybody who was here then had a chance to look at the minutes?
I did, and I have a couple of grammatical things.
Well, that's okay. I don't write the minutes, I proof them, but I don't always
Okay.
catch it. So don't
Okay.
feel bad, I'm fine with any
Yeah.
edits.
It seems, yeah, let me just point to it, it's easier to just
Okay.
point to it. There are existing lighting, so a separate
Oh, yep.
application doesn't need, it should be there is. And in the next paragraph, optional changes are for a darker shade, and then it goes on and says is allowed. You don't need two verbs there.
Yep.
Optional change for a darker shade is allowed, would be fine. What can I say, it's the lawyer in me.
Oh, no, that's okay, there are times I catch those things and times that I'm not as careful as I should be.
Attorneys are always so careful with their wording.
Isn't that strange?
Oh, and our commas.
No, good, thank you for catching those.
Thank you, Martha.
Any other comments, changes?
Other than that, I think it's fine.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second? All in favor of approving the December 2nd minutes? Minutes are approved. Anybody have anything else to add? Otherwise, I'm sorry.
Hold on, no, I did send out an email towards the end of today, sending out the public notice for the January 27th Planning Commission hearing on the proposal for revised design review regulations and the amended overlay district boundaries. So take a look at that, look through, if you can make the hearing, great, but it will also, after that, this chance for public comment, there'll be opportunities where design review committee or planning commission can meet, and planning commission and historic preservation commission can meet and discuss what the public's comments were, and either.
Would you resend that, the last one that says attached R, and there was no attachment?
There wasn't an attachment with what I sent it for?
Not on mine.
Okay,
So-
sorry about that.
That's okay.
I will, that's bad, because I went to 3 committees.
Or if it was there, I couldn't access it
Okay.
for some reason, so I
Will
appreciate it.
do.
Thank you. So again, next meeting, the 21st, Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Shows up in mine. Notice of public hearing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
word attachment. Okay. I'll resend it to you, Steve.
Okay, thanks, sorry. Do I hear a motion to adjourn, if nobody has anything else? A second?
Second.
All in favor of adjournment, raise your hand. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.